Welcome to Microfiche Microphone. I'm Micah, and on this channel we look at microfiche from the past, old newspaper articles in the public domain. We look at them with our modern eyes, our modern perspective, and see what we can learn from them. So on this microfiche time capsule, we're looking at the Ladies' Home Journal in May 1884, and this is an article called Sensible Advice. I thought that after some of the bad advice we read in the last What Women Want to Know, I thought we would see if this one has a little bit better advice. So I have not read this before. I'm not sure what it's about, but we will find out together. So, sensible advice. Is there a woman anywhere who has never been vexed to know what to have for dinner? Oh, what a very modern problem. Yeah, it's a problem. Yeah. This may be helped if on some happier day she sits down with pencil and paper and makes a list of the possible dinners that are within her power to prepare, the kinds of meat and the ways to cook them, the kinds of puddings and pies which are on the bill of fare. It is a fact that almost every housewife has a bill of fare, though she might be surprised if you were to tell her so. This list is really a great help. Very often a good dinner, and one with sufficient variety, might be put upon the table if one could only think just what to have at the proper moment. A list which I saw for desserts commenced thus: prune pie, lemon pie, cornstarch pudding, plain, with fruit or with chocolate, bread pudding, baked Indian pudding, cranberries, lemon tartlets. Yeah, I think that's sensible advice. That's very sensible advice, because I know for myself, if I start to think about the things that my children will eat, compared with the things that I'm able to make, and that's usually where we end up landing when I decide what to make for dinner. So it's interesting that the suggestion is very, very simple, and it's something anyone could do at any time ever. Just write down what you can make. You're like, okay, hamburgers, frozen pizza. I think everybody can make that. Just saying. Spaghetti. You just make a list of the things that you can make. And then when you're not sure what to have for dinner, take a look at it and be like, hey, what is it? What do we want today? And if you ever feel like trying something new and you learn how to make something new, you can add it to the list. Yeah, I think this is really good advice. This is definitely still modern and applicable today. So I like that. There are always something anyone can make, even if you're not a very good cook, because there are lots of foods that are already mostly prepared for you. So I think that anyone could take this advice and run with it. Yeah, I really like that. There's actually a few other little clips underneath it that don't have headlines. Let's just add those to it because this one was pretty short. Yeah. There are times in the lives of children when colds are taken, no one knows how, and when toothache is almost unbearable, and yet it is not advisable to have the tooth extracted. One means of relief at such a time is to cut a large raisin, is that a raisin, open, roast it or heat it, and apply it around the tooth. While it is as hot as it can be borne, it will operate like a little poultice and will draw out the inflammation. To wet a flannel cloth with strong vinegar and then put a hot iron under it, and so to steam the face, will aid in reducing the inflammation. Does that work? Let me just give a disclaimer. Please don't follow this advice. Unless you're 100% sure that this is something you want to try, because I personally don't know that I would try it. I've had a toothache before, and it was a very long wait to Monday when the dentist opened before I had a root canal, and that was a very difficult weekend. But I think I probably would have tried this at that point, because the pain is just so bad. Toothache pain is just so bad. But would heat help it though? So this is definitely not advice I am giving. I do not advise this at all. But I'm just gonna check real quick. I guess they'd say a raisin because it's the right size, but otherwise I don't know why they would heat up a raisin, unless that was something else that was a little smudged. Heat applied to toothache. Should you apply heat or cold to a toothache? Almost never apply heat to your face when experiencing a toothache. This is from Zilberman Dental Group. Okay. Sorry, I can't. It's all written together, so I couldn't quite figure out where the edges of the words are. All right, so they specifically said, do not do this. If you have an infection, the heat may draw that infection out, causing more swelling. Apply cold to bring down the swelling. Makes sense. Uh, so, so yeah, this is not advice. Please do not follow this advice. Do not use heat. Do not use heat. But I'm telling you, when you have a bad toothache, like, you'll try anything. So I'm willing to bet that somebody's tried this before. All right. Bad temper is frequently nothing but another name for indigestion. Okay. Irritability, peevishness, and dyspepsia are the certain results of bolting food when the body is weary and the mind preoccupied. Then follow hasty words, a rasping temper, gloom and fault finding, and peace flees from the threshold. Really? Okay. Full disclosure here, I actually suffer from a stomach condition. Technically, it's not in the stomach, it's an intestinal condition. And I'm not going to get into what it is, it's not important, but it does cause cramping. Yeah. And this is, like, when I have a stomach ache, I don't feel like I get irritable. Like, that's, if I get a headache, I get irritable. But in a stomach ache, I mostly just feel like crap and need to go to the bathroom, you know? But, like, I don't know. Does it really cause irritability? I guess any pain can cause irritability depending on the person feeling it. But I don't know. This just seems like very strange advice. I guess back in the day before they really had medicine for any kind of stomach condition. And there are just so many stomach conditions, including my own, which has been around forever, you know? So if they had a condition like I have, and then they were getting cramping, yeah, but the thing is, I told you it doesn't really make me irritable, but I guess it could make other people irritable. I don't think I would jump directly to indigestion from irritability. I would probably guess more like headache or like toothache or, you know, something else, or possibly an emotional cause, like projection of somebody else's problems, and, you know, they need to like work through something. But like jumping straight to indigestion, it's a bit jumping to conclusions, isn't it? I don't think this is good advice either. So, okay, moving on. Iron silk on the wrong side when quite damp. If colored, use an iron which is not very hot to avoid fading it. Good advice. There's also a silk setting on your iron, like on today's irons. So back then, this is before they had, you know, electric irons, so that you had to like physically heat an like piece of metal on your stove in order to iron your clothes. And so this is very good advice, saying, okay, silk setting, reversed, and with a very low heat. Yeah, and that's very definitely good advice because silk is very delicate. I like that. So that one I've considered good advice. So 4 pieces of advice. Make a list of all the foods you can make, and when you don't know what to make, look at your list. Good advice. Putting heat on your toothache, bad advice. Bad temper is the same as indigestion, also iffy advice. And then ironing silk on the wrong side with low heat, good advice. Yeah. So we got a few bits of good advice and a few bits of not so great advice. Interesting how they used to think that inflammation could be cured using heat. I wonder why that was. The only thing that I can think of that heat really helps inflammation-wise is like sore muscles. Like if I overdid it one day and, you know, and my arms were really sore, my back, then I'll take a hot bath. You know, then that will kind of relax my muscles, and that will definitely help. But like other kinds of inflammation, wouldn't heat just make it worse? I'm just saying, because we're talking about swelling and like my daughter actually recently had an abscess tooth that had to be extracted, and that was scary. Like that was a lot of swelling. Like her whole face swelled up, and they actually thought she might have the mumps at the ER. Like they were actually asking if she had been immunized. I'm like, yeah, she was fully vaccinated. I just don't know how she would have gotten it, but it's not impossible that she had the mumps. You know, despite vaccination, it's not very likely, but it's not impossible. So that was actually on the table for a little while until they realized that she had recently been to the dentist. And then they decided that it's probably because of an infected tooth. Sent her to a specialist and they confirmed it, and she had to get the tooth extracted. And that was really scary. And I can't imagine heat helping. Like, her face was swollen up to twice its normal size. And it looked awful. Like, heat. I don't know. Like, putting anything hot on it, I think she would have screamed. Because you couldn't even touch it. You could barely even look at it because you had to, like, lift up the cheek to see the tooth. And she just would scream because it hurt so bad. So any kind of severe toothache like that, I cannot imagine heat helping. Also, with the toothache that I had before I got a root canal, I probably would have tried heat. I would have tried anything because it was just awful. But I can't imagine if something is swollen and inflamed, which means it's hot already, how does heat help? I'm just asking. I mean, if anybody knows, please write it in the comments below, because I'm sure that it must have helped in some way, or else they wouldn't be advising it. But I'm guessing it's not in the toothache way that has inflammation. Is there any other kind of inflammation where heat helps? Or is it only in muscle aches? So please write it in the comments below if you know the answer to this, because I am curious. But otherwise, I think other than the heat applied to toothaches, it was actually really quite good advice given back in the day, you know? Also, sharing information when it's not readily available, like ironing silk. You know, you couldn't just Google it. Like, how do I iron my silk without burning it? You know, or misshapening it, or whatever that happens. It says it loses its color as well. Yeah, I don't know. You know, I'm not a textile expert, but it was very helpful to hear the information given by a textile expert. Well, if not a textile expert, then somebody who at least has experience with silk and is able to help those who don't. So anyway, I thought that was really interesting. I mean, some really good modern advice. I am definitely going to sit down and write down all of the foods I can make that my children will eat. So we have a list of things that we can have. I might even write down everything I can make so that I can make stuff for myself later. Just saying. Plus, whenever you learn a new recipe, you can always add it to the list. So that's excellent idea and excellent advice. I hope you learned something too from this one. I thought that was kind of fun. And please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you in the next video.